Mr. Splinter has given us a very important mission for tonight. The target is across the street. We must use stealth and cunning to infiltrate the human world and retrieve Go-Gurt.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, and comics. I am your host, Josh Scar, and joining me this week is your favorite furball, Alex. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I have a large glass of milk here, and I'm ready to drink it all down.
I've heard milk is bad for cats. Isn't it supposed to be more like a creamer, like a non-dairy-based creamer?
I don't know. I saw the new Turtles movie, and I just want a lot of milk.
I should have introduced you as a mutant, shouldn't I? Tabaxis aren't mutants. That's disingenuous.
How dare you? We're fur people.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's disingenuous to call you a mutant.
You can just call me a furry if you want.
If you feel so inclined. That's now canon. But we also have an additional guest joining us, someone I'm very excited to introduce because I love his podcast. He's been on the show before. Friend of the podcast, Greg Beaver. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me back. I feel like
definitely.
I bullied my way back on.
Oh no, you just told us you wanted to be back on. I was like, okay, no problem there. I have no issue having guests on for good review episodes. So Greg, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Podcast called I Have Some Notes. We take Hollywood's most mediocre movies and punch them up as best we can. Sort of like a creative writing exercise mixed in a movie podcast. It's a lot of fun. You can check us out at ihavesomenotes.com and all the socials at I Have Some Notes.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite podcasts. It's you guys release on Fridays now, right? Every other Friday?
Correct. We are on a break right. Yeah. We're on a break right now. We'll be back on September 8th.
Any insights as to what your first episode back will be, or have you not released that information yet?
We will be doing Quantum Mania.
Greg, I have a question for you. What's it like to have a podcast that takes a break once in a while?
Well, yeah, it's more out of necessity. I don't know. Like during the summer, it's really hard to, as you probably know, it's hard to wrangle guests and even the threesome that we are. Everyone's going away on vacation, so you know it's good to take a break every once in a while and recharge the batteries. I feel like so I like it.
Alex, you're not contractually obligated to be here. Like you're recovering from illness. You could have taken a week off.
Never. My work ethic is too strong.
I appreciate it because there are sometimes where I don't want to be here and you take the reins, which is great because then you just bring Justin in and it's two people talking really good about movies. And I'm like, wow, these guys should have a podcast.
And we will one day.
Just got to win that lottery so I can get Justin on the payroll.
Exactly.
I promise this week. This is the week the check will clear, Alex. I promise.
Yeah.
So we are here to talk with Greg about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie. But first, we're going to hear from our friends over at the I Hate It, Let's Watch It podcast. So we will be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Dawn.
And if you've ever watched a TV show and thought to yourself, oh my god, that season finale plot twist was absolutely bonkers.
Or seen a movie and thought, wow, I need to talk to somebody about this train wreck immediately.
Then we think you'll fit right in with our podcast, I Hate It, Let's Watch It. We watch TV shows like Riverdale and Emily in Paris.
And movies like Deep Water, Killer Sofa, Rubber, and Deadly Illusions. And we give them the total rinsing they deserve.
It's basically group therapy for movie masochists. So come check us out wherever you stream podcasts.
So what's funny is, from what I understand, the creator of Emily in Paris wanted her name to be pronounced, or wanted Paris to be pronounced Paris, like it would be in the French dialect. But because Americans are Americans, he didn't get that rhyming scheme that he wanted. So instead of Emily in Paris, it's Emily in Paris, and no one understands the point of the title. But that's just a fun little nuance there. We are here to talk about some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
No, let's not skip over this. Let's go back. Let's talk about the other words that Americans can't pronounce correctly. Like, would you like to pronounce the German shoe company?
Isn't it supposed to be like Adidas, but we say Adidas?
Yes, it's supposed to be Adidas. They
Yeah,
actually had
you guys can't pronounce a boot.
a boot, and Nike's supposed
Isn't
to
that
be
Aladdin's sidekick?
Oh, can we talk about Aladdin too? The Return of
Return of
Jafar.
Not so fast, Jafar.
And let's not forget Nike's supposed to be Nietzsche or Neek or some crap like that.
I know Australians pronounce it Nike.
Is it
They just
Nike?
drop the long E.
Oh, it's just Nike. It's just Nike down here with another shrimp on the Barbie. Damn
We're
it.
not doing accents again
No,
this week.
we're not. Cut this crap
That's good
out.
because that was a big swing and a miss.
Oh, for a long time I couldn't do any accent. Anytime I tried to do one, I sounded like Julia Child. It became an ongoing joke to try to get me to do accents when I'm DMing, because no matter what, it sounds like Julia Child. Anyway,
All right, gents. So yeah, we are here to talk about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, which I'm pulling up the box office numbers here really quick. Last I saw, it had like a $40 million opening.
wow,
Let's see what the weekend's here. How are we
almost
into August already?
it's almost a third of the Meg too.
So the domestic opening is projected at about 43 million. International, it's at 8.5 million, but that is due to the fact that the movie is also not being distributed entirely internationally yet. I know Australia is not even getting it till September, so there's some weird international distribution going on. But 43 million is nothing to scoff at when you think that about how this is a property that hasn't seen cinemas since 2012, I think, with the animated movie with I think it was Sarah Michelle Gellar as April O'Neil. That was supposed to be like a pseudo sequel to the original trilogy from the 90s.
Yeah, I looked at those numbers just before climbing on here, and I saw that it at least on Sunday it wasn't even beating Oppenheimer or Barbie. Which I mean I don't know what the studio projections were, so I don't know whether they consider that disappointing or not. But I was a little surprised how low it was.
Studio projections were supposed to be anywhere from 25 to 30. So, if
So
anything,
it's
it
exceeding
overperformed.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a global box office of 51.5 million right now. And I believe the budget was about around 110 million, which I think a good chunk of that went into the animation, which you can see it. That like the first thing I'm going to talk about here is the animation. Like you're going to see a lot of people draw comparisons to Spider-Verse, which I think the aesthetic is a little different, but you can see some nuances and little things here and there that were inspired by uh, Spider-Verse, or that maybe made things possible with the new animation techniques they created. Just because like the lines coming off lights, um, the way the backdrops looked as they got further out in the distance, where it was almost more like a sketch. It was gorgeous. And then I believe the studio behind the animation was the one also behind the Mitchells versus the Machines, which you can definitely see a lot of that in the aesthetic as well.
Yeah, it was I loved the art style of this movie, and I feel like the style was perfect for the Ninja Turtles and their theme specifically, you know, because you have this sort of chaotic, sketchy mess, which is sort of what it feels like to be a teenager, right? And it also feels in a way underdeveloped, again, like a teenager. And it's yeah, it was just a wonderful way of marrying an art style to your theme and to the Ninja Turtles specifically.
Yeah, I really like the art direction. It felt good to kind of figure that this was a story that a bunch of like teenagers were just building on each other for. And especially like when there's explosions, it's just a bunch of swirly lines that's not quite finished. You have some of these weird harsh angles and stuff like that. The only thing I didn't particularly like was I'm not sure why the decision was made that other than the turtles in April, like everything had a slant to it. Like the cars all, if they're all like had listed to the left, a lot of the characters' faces of the bad guys were all asymmetrical, just off kilter slightly. And I don't get the intention of that because once I noticed that from the car to the faces to glasses to bags to windows, I kept tilting my head trying to straighten it out. It was just because I was just like, is this me or is this the film? Nope, it's the film. It was such an odd decision to just like have other than April and the Turtles have symmetrical faces and that pop of vibrancy that everything else was just kind of canted. That's the only thing I didn't like. It was just so weird.
I think personally, I think I only noticed that like the asymmetrical characters were villains. I didn't notice it in the objects and things like that, but that doesn't mean that that's. I take it at your word that that's what you noticed. But like, particularly uh, Maya Rudolph's character, I noticed she was quite asymmetrical, and I took note of that. And maybe it was just a way of coding villain versus hero.
Yeah, and something you just said, Greg, too, talking about how like a perspective of a teenager, maybe that's part of this too, because the turtles are seeing a lot of these people for the first time, so their interpretation of it might. I'm digging into Flash director territory, trying to justify bad visual effects, but like maybe it is kind of digging into that where the turtles' perspective on this, because the only characters with clean lines, even though they are still asymmetrical, are the other mutants. So like the turtles see them in a certain way, whereas humans they see as threatening. So the design is a little off, except for April, who Leonardo, spoiler alert, falls in love with immediately. So I wonder if the perception plays a little bit of a role into that. I think I'd have to go back for a second viewing for the "you don't mess with New York" moment in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
to see if maybe those people who come out of the shadows to help, maybe they're a little less asymmetrical.
Yeah, it's a good point. We'll have to look into that.
I definitely think this is a movie that could benefit from several rewatches, not because of the plot is particularly complex, but because there's so much going on in the background, and I think you could probably pull a whole lot of Easter eggs out.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, I'm sure this is very similar to both Spider-Verse movies, where pretty much every frame has some kind of Easter egg built into it.
Did anyone catch an Easter egg for Eastman? Because I saw the Laird one very prevalent.
It's the high
Uh,
school. It's Eastman High.
oh, it's Eastman High. Oh, okay. That is just such a like typical high school actual name that I didn't
Yeah.
catch it. But Laird's Pizza when they're eating with April, I was like, oh, and I completely Eastman High.
See, and I did the exact opposite. We had the giant neon, literal giant neon sign in front of us, and I was just like, Laird, what is that? And then like as we got to Eastman High, I'm like, Eastman and Laird, duh. So let's talk about the cast here real quick, because I do think that the four turtles as a whole are, it's refreshing, and it's a concept that I didn't know I needed, but I want it everywhere. Where we have Micah Abbey as Donatello, Shaman Brown Jr. as Michelangelo, Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo, and Brady Noon as Raphael. And there's a bunch of celebrities that they don't need any extra promotion, because they get their names plastered all over the posters, where these guys are going to be having like 5 years worth of work to do for probably minimum pay once all the strikes are done. Because there's going to be a 2-season Paramount Plus series spun off from this that leads into a second movie. So just big shout out to the performances from Micah Abbey, Nicholas Cantu, Brady Noon, and Shaman Brown Jr. Like those kids were phenomenal. I even from the first trailer, I was like, yes, this is something that the Turtles have been missing, because yeah, they've all been voiced and sounded like 20-30-year-old dudes, even though they are supposed to be teenagers.
That's interesting that that they've already figured that this is going to be 2 seasons worth of television, which would which I guess makes the movie a backdoor pilot, but it's a giant budget movie, so which I guess is that a front door pilot? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, from the budget alone for just the animation and the art direction and everything in this, like the only thing in this movie that I would say I did not need was a close up of Bebop's pierced nipple. on a floppy man boob. Like that was the one thing I did not need. Everything else in that, well, I guess also Splinter making out with a certain thing that we'll get into later. That's spoiler, but spoiler alert: Splinter makes out with something.
You didn't like that?
No, I thought that was a step too far in the joke category.
What? But I mean, the first time was kind of sweet. You didn't like the second time?
I didn't need either time. Like it was a good punchline that was set up earlier in the movie, and I was like, oh, I get it. And then it becomes, oh, and they're single. I'm like, oh God, oh no.
And they can communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the teenage voice cast was really good. You can tell that they had them all in the same room, just going off of each other. You know, they had a script and were just bouncing in ideas. Which, to Greg, your point, yeah, I'm gonna have to watch this 2 or 3 times with subtitles because sometimes they were talking over each other, and other times they were just talking so fast. I'm like, I didn't have time to pull up my phone and go like, what slang word does that mean? Okay. And it's like, I think that is a Korean pop band, but I need to be sure. I swear at one point they referenced when they were doing like a list of celebrities they thought were cool. I swear I heard 2 or 3 that I didn't even recognize. And I'm like, okay, I got nothing. This is going to definitely be Amazon Prime Video, X-Ray, who the hell are these references situation constantly.
Oh, I do also need to shout out Ayo Edebiri as April O'Neil. Just another fantastic. I think she's a little bit older than the rest of the other cast, but she's still, I think, like pre-20. So
she is 27.
She's 27? What? No, she looks so much younger.
According to Wikipedia's, she is 27.
Wow. Way to like completely go against the grain with your premise here. I mean, I guess women do sound more mature at certain ages, but yeah. Oh, born in 1995. Dang.
I feel old now.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your point about these references, it took me until our group chat with Justin Henson, Alex, that I didn't realize what the reference was, because Donatello at one point says, I didn't even get to see BTS IRL. And I'm like, what does that mean? I felt like Matt Damon at the end of Saving Private Ryan, just like I could feel the wrinkles just washing over me. And as I was typing it out, I was like, BTS IRL. Okay, I don't know what BTS is, but IRL must have been in real life. Like, so what is BTS? And then I looked at it's the K-pop band, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They're kind of popular.
Among who? People that I'm not the demographic of this movie for. So, gentlemen, do you want to get into spoilers and talk a little bit more about the story?
Sure.
All right, this is your official spoiler warning. I don't have a soundbite for it other than me saying this is your spoiler warning. But let's get into the story, because I think the story was my biggest problem with this movie. It felt kind of milquetoast to me. I liked a lot of the shifting that they did, where like Bebop and Rocksteady, Mondo Gecko, and all these guys are not like mutant animal hybrids. They're just straight up manufactured mutants from embryos, essentially created by Baxter Stockman, and they're just like this mutant family. And I thought that was interesting to a point, because then I started thinking like, well, what are they going to do for villains? Are they just going to heel turn Bebop and Rocksteady again? Like I don't know. We don't know. But it creates a weird paradox in my mind about where they can go, especially with the assumption that Baxter Stockman is dead, or maybe what's her name, Cynthia Utrom, is actually like keeping him under wraps somewhere.
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the stuff that I was thinking about the least while I was watching it. But I think just enveloped in the movie and not thinking about like where they're headed with this with their TV series and sequels. Like it works. Like I like the idea of having like this, I guess it's like a good mutant family versus a bad mutant family, or two mutant families who grew up similarly but have like these sort of like different perspectives on how they're going to go about solving their problem of not being accepted in human society, right? So I think those two things, really kind of drove the story fairly well for me.
honestly, the story just worked for me because it was about the teenage angst of the Little Mermaid, the world up there. They literally have a moment where they're looking through the grate up to the sea, like Ariel looking up and seeing Eric's ship floating on by. But there wasn't a big explosion or a big kind of like have out abandon the family moment that a lot of you know cartoons, kids movies and stuff go to. Hell, most adults movies have that. All right, third act, everybody's in a fight, everyone hates each other. It didn't have that. It just had Splinter needed to save them, was briefly lecturing them, and then almost immediately he's like, no, I'm the bad guy here. And I really felt that was a nice, powerful moment of education that didn't result from family strife and needing to apologize to everyone and the whole we're not talking bullshit that always happens.
And no one
One of
says a
my
bad name to someone out of angst either, or anger.
yeah,
Like, you're not my real dad.
yeah. One of my favorite Roger Ebert movie reviews is he originally did not like the movie. This is an old movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. John Candy, Steve Martin, about Thanksgiving. And but he after a year or two of rewatching it, it became a movie he revisited every year, and he realized it's because John Hughes, the writer director, was smart enough to take the opposites with different points of view, and instead of making the second act into the third act climax being them yelling at each other or fall apart, he put that all the way at the front. Act one, the ending is Steve Martin just yells at John Candy, gives him shit for everything that's happened in the first 25 minutes of the movie. John Candy gives this beautiful speech about I like me, my wife likes me, I'm okay with all this, and then they're friends. And that movie, that's what I kind of felt like the movie took a little bit of heart from is the strife does not need to be a family torn apart. The strife just needs to be resolved with we have differences of opinions and it's time to grow up.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah, it's a movie about acceptance, and like Splinter's arc is accepting that his kids need to experience the world that he's desperately afraid of and trying to protect them from. And I guess the turtles arc does that they're seeking acceptance. Do they have to accept anything themselves? I was just wondering if there's if that arc marries at all. But yeah,
They kind of come together a little bit more because like there's that moment where after their first night out, when they watch Ferris Bueller, Raph says to them like, the last thing I see before I die is not your faces. And
yeah,
then by the end of it, he's like, guys, I said this, but if we're gonna die, I'm happy to be dying next to my brothers. So like there's little bits here, but I think it's mostly per usual. It's Raph that ends up being the one that grows in his heart.
yeah. I guess they have to learn. They have to accept that they were following the crime syndicate for the wrong reasons. They're doing it for
Yeah.
personal gain instead of
True.
trying to. They're only trying to find a way of ingratiating themselves to humans rather than doing what was right.
Yeah, that's a great point. How did you guys feel about? We've talked about this a little bit. How did you feel about the references? Because the movie felt like it was trying to strike a balance between the adults bringing their kids to the movie as well as the kids and the popular thing for them. Because we talked about the BTS thing, but I very distinctly remember they had also mentioned that they made a Hey Arnold reference. I can't remember exactly what, but all I could think in that moment was these guys shouldn't know who Hey Arnold is.
Yeah, I felt like that too.
There was a Hey Arnold movie like 3 years ago. They might have seen it.
On what service though? Like that's one thing. That's one thing that I think the world building needed to take like 2 seconds to be like, hey Donnie, that workaround that you created for our internet is out again. Because they talk about they have a cell phone that they're on all the time. They each have their own cell phone. They make a
Hmm.
reference that Splinter has a Roku, but we never hear about like Donnie did something to allow them to have internet or have access to a cell tower. Like I just wanted like 2 seconds of them to do something with Donnie to be like, hey, we need this fixed. Please be the tech guy.
Hey. We know they have a fridge because they went and got dairy products that are perishable. And we also know they have at
We don't know that
least
they have a fridge because they sat through Ferris Bueller with their milk just sitting out,
and the Go-Gurt.
and then they went home with that milk. So maybe they just drink sour milk.
Okay, we know they at least have a DVD player because that's how they learned kung fu.
That's true.
I love that gag. I in terms of like the story, I will say I was not expecting them to mix the beginning around. I thought they would actually be bold and actually acknowledge the fact that the Turtles technically are part of the MCU, because according to the original release, the ooze vial was the vial that blinded Matt Murdock.
Yep.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, instead it was just
it's a
yeah.
parody take on Daredevil's origin story.
yeah, but it's a complete rewrite, and I really did love that Splinter, his own headcanon for why he's fucking old, is because he's like, this is just how the ooze works. Since you were young, Turtles, and you walked through it, you remained young and grew normally. But since I was a middle-aged rat, I became older. It all makes sense.
I liked hanging a lantern on that. That was really good.
Yeah, that was funny. It was a good moment.
Which that's something I never thought about. It's not anything that I really felt like ever needed explaining, but I guess that's something that the writers felt like it needed to be explained.
Oh, I interpreted that as the writers just being like, this is inherently silly and we're making a gag out of it. Like
That makes more sense.
Yeah, like in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990, as a child, I always just accepted that Shredder would recognize that yes, a rat who scratched him like 25 years ago became huge and is now in New York, standing on top of a building, and you immediately are like, I know this dude. I know him. He attacked me. He knows the same. Oh yes, these giant turtles know the same kung fu moves as my original master, and it's because of this rat. So I must go berserk and charge it.
I just a quick question, because you guys know comics so much better than me. In the original comic run, is Splinter human first or is he a rat first?
He's a
That
rat.
has changed a couple of times.
Oh, really?
I think it was the animated series was the one that made him human that became a rat because he was just like hanging out in the sewer playing with the turtles and it just turned him into a rat. But I believe the original comic, he was just a rat that got hit with the ooze and he became anthropomorphic.
Gotcha. See, the opposite way always made more sense to me, especially like, I mean, the way that they in the 90s cartoon, the way they set up Splinter is that he was he was in the same ninjutsu school as Orokusaki, or which one's which? I don't remember.
The Shredder is a Rokusaki.
Right. And yeah, and he sort of like betrays him, then he ends up being homeless in New York, and then that's when he gets the ooze on him. But like, that makes more sense just in terms of like, that's why he knows ninjutsu, that's why he trains the Ninja Turtles. Like, it seems to flow a lot more easier, rather than in the case of the 90s movie, a rat practicing ninjutsu in his cage, which is hilarious.
I love that moment. That moment is singed in my brain along with the Pizza Hut commercial in the front of it.
or B, just like having to sort of hand wave like, well, he found a book, or they found DVDs or whatever. Like, I this one's okay just because like he wants to protect them from the humans, so he's teaching them to defend themselves. That's fine. But he isn't really Master Splinter in this one. He's just kind of like Dad Splinter, which is also okay. I don't mind things changing up here and there.
Yeah, you got to keep it fresh in some ways. So like, this is the 5th reboot of the Turtles, and
For
like
sure.
4th since Nickelodeon has taken over.
Yeah.
So like, you got to find different ways to keep it fresh, and they've progressively like made the Turtles younger, pretty much by like proxy, by having April become younger and younger. I haven't seen any of the newer series. I've heard the most recent one is really good, but I haven't had
the Rise of the Ninja Turtles, right?
Yeah, I've heard that one's really good. I was originally turned off by the concept of that one just because I didn't like how big Raphael was. Like, I get that you got to try and make them distinct in certain ways, but just like making Raphael just this giant turtle is, it's, to me, that's not the way to go with him. Like, you can make him thicker like they did in this one where he's just always a bigger boy.
Yeah.
But just making him 9 feet tall compared to the other ones who are 4 and 6 feet tall, maybe it just,
Yeah.
that one, that design just didn't sit right with me. And I think one thing that I don't think I'll ever get over it is the visual aids of things. So like, oh, Donatello's the nerdy guy, he has glasses. Do they really need glasses? Does Michelangelo need braces to really get across the fact that they're teenagers? That's one thing that I really just, I'm gonna nitpick that because I don't think it's needed. You can do other things, and like the Michael Bay movie went like, Michael Bay produced movie went to like the millionth degree in a lot of that, because like Michelangelo's got like the aviator shades, and he's got the uh the grunge what the heck's the word, not plaid, um
Jacket?
no, it's like a button down shirt that's plaid. What the heck is it called? Lumberjacks wear them.
Oh, lumberjack sweater or whatever. Jacket.
Yeah, lumberjack. He's got he's got that like wrapped around his waist because he's grungy but like a party dude. Raphael's just massive and jacked, and I think they touched on that a little bit because one of the things that Raphael steals from the vendors in this movie is he steals like protein powder.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Can I briefly deviate into why I can't stand those Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles?
Oh, absolutely. We would bash Michael Bay at every opportunity.
Wait. Let me clear the floor. Please take 20. I'm gonna go refill my water. You rant as much as you want. I'm gonna enjoy every moment of this.
Well, just like as a concept of having the Ninja Turtles be a bunch of giant roid monkeys, like, it's so thematically opposite to the Ninja Turtles. One, because they're supposed to be teenagers, not monsters. But I would hazard to guess that like Michael Bay and company saw them more as like superheroes, maybe in the vein of like, you know, the kind of superheroes that the Fast X, or you know, the Fast and Furious series kind of turned into. But like the turtles' strength traditionally has always come from them uniting as a group. They're strongest when they're together. So when you have four giant juice like fridges, like, that really feels to me like they can pretty much take on anything themselves, but I don't really feel like inherently that they're weak when they're divided. um and I mean, also they looked ugly. They were just the ugliest versions of the turtles that exist in media. So, but like, yeah, just missing the point that hard was really frustrating to me. And those movies also, uh, each individual turtle doesn't feel like a person. They actually feel like it's kind of like how the Transformers movies sort of played out, where the main character was like Sam Witwicky, and like the Transformers were also there, and that's how those Turtles movies felt. Like, you know, they just felt like, oh well, the Turtles are also here, but they don't need to have like desires, needs, or wants, or frustrations, or anything like that. They're just the Ninja Turtles, and that's all we need from them. Um, to a certain extent, this movie kind of has that problem, and I think you sort of, Josh, touched on it a little bit earlier, in that the four characters kind of function as a single character. Like, they're somewhat distinctive from one another, but not enough time is spent on, you know, Leonardo's personality and Michelangelo's personality and Donatello's personality. Um, certainly not to the extent that like maybe the original like 90s movie was done, where you get a really good sense of like which character is which. Um, and when it comes to the climax where they're about to go fight a giant fly kaiju, there's a moment where they uh, talk about out loud what each different turtle's skill is, and they sort of like summarize it very quickly, like, you can improv, and you're tough as nails or whatever, and then they're like, all right, break, everybody go do their thing. The problem with that is like with Michelangelo specifically, we'll use that as the first example. Michelangelo is early on set up as liking improv. It's in the school scene where he notices the sign up for improv, so he wants to do improv. But we don't really get a scene of him like being an improviser. And then when they call out that he's great at improvising, I didn't notice him do anything after that for them. Like, his improvisation doesn't really play into defeating the villain. So like they just sort of like, again, they just operate as a single character after that. So like they try and tell you that they're distinctive, and then they go back to operating as one, which is a little unfortunate since they seem to have thought about it, but not enough.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because they could have really driven that point home with his bond with Mondo Gecko, but instead they just sit there and say bro to each other, and it's like, oh, that's
Sure.
great improvisation there, Michelangelo.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they could have acted out a scene together or something like that, and it could have somehow, maybe they could have tag team in the climax too. That would have been satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what that is that a little bit is they're just kind of relying upon you to carry forth the baggage of 30 years of turtle stuff. Which I will say that it has now been 23 years since the first movie was released, and we finally have the second best movie.
Sure.
We
Yeah.
don't have
sorry
to.
sorry to burst your bubble there, Alex. It's 33.
Oh, fuck me, I'm old. It's right, it's 33. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yes, the 90s was 10 years ago, wasn't it? I
Yeah,
know.
no, I understand what you're saying. Some small anecdote. I've met up with a bunch of people that I haven't seen
Oh
in a
my
long
God.
time, and as I was telling Ricky about it earlier yesterday, I was like, "Oh yeah, and we did all this in 2004, and that was 19 years ago. My God, time means meaningless." And yeah, no, I feel you there. Like, you said 23
Oh,
years. It's like, yeah, that sounds right. And then I did the math real quick. It's like, that's not right.
no. But like that film did to what you were saying, Greg. It individualized each of the turtles, what their personalities are, what their strengths are, what they're good at, and also, as you said, it also was able to pinpoint that they are stronger together. When the turtles are defeated, it's always because they're alone. Raphael is alone; he gets his ass kicked
Mhm.
by all of them.
Yep.
They all try to take on Shredder alone, and they
Yeah.
all end up thrown off into the side of the building. So much so that they're paper rock scissoring who's going to go next before they realize, no, we got to try to fight them together. And they're just not good enough at that point.
Yeah.
Because they are still turtles they're learning that. And I felt that this movie did, with that whole culmination scene, kind of did give short shrift to the turtles having a personality. Leo's personality was he's trying to be a leader with his Batman voice, and then quickly he's lovesick. Michelangelo, you're right. I'm not sure where he got the braces from, because I have questions like, do they kidnap somebody and make them do adjustments every 6 weeks? Is Splinter doing the braces? I have.
Sure. Why not?
It's just little world building things that I get. They're visually just trying to be like, they're teenagers. Let them look at teenagers are awkward and have braces, but like, they take 10 seconds. This is a really breezy 99-minute movie.
Yeah.
You can't take an extra minute to build in a line of dialogue that says Donatello built us a Wi-Fi network, and Donatello or Splinter does really bad orthodontial work.
Michelangelo was the only one brave enough to go through it. The rest of us were good.
Yeah, Raph
Yeah,
had one
that'd be a
tooth pulled
great
and just
gag
never
if
came back.
if he got to see like a flashback of like how many different versions of the braces Michelangelo had. Like if in those flashbacks to like when they're younger turtles, like he's got like this massive
The full
headset
headgear.
that's like creaking and stuff like that. Look, it's rusted or whatever. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I mean, these are all little nitpicks because I enjoyed it. It was breezy. It was fun. Um, it felt like a good backdoor pilot for 2 seasons of a Paramount Plus show and a sequel, which I hope we get.
Yeah.
But the only thing that particularly bothered me was after a little while, I did start playing Whose Voice Is That? And a lot of them I knew from, were top of mind because, the trailers are plastered with them while giving short shrift to the teenage voice actors, most of whom don't even have Wikipedia pages. That tells you
Hey,
how
Brady
new they
Noon
are.
was in the new Mighty Ducks. You pay him
Mhm.
respect.
And he has a Wikipedia page. But like, Jackie Chan did fantastic as Splinter, but I didn't need Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko, mostly because while Paul Rudd is an eternal, being, he doesn't sound like a teenage gecko, you know? Hannibal
Yeah, and
Buress was
like,
fine, but
what a waste of Giancarlo Esposito too. Like as Baxter Stockman, he had 3 lines. Like it you paid him probably $100,000 to show up for two hours of work, maybe.
yeah. I mean, I do love Natasha Demetrio because I love What We Do in the Shadows, but all I could hear was nausea, and I was wondering what she was doing as a mutant bat. I mean, did she turn into bat form and go into this cartoon? Because that would be awesome if they referenced that on the new season. But I don't need all these extra voices. To me, this movie was carried by the charisma and fun and joy of the 4 actual teenagers. The the voice, guess the celebrity game got a little old quick.
Oh, I guess that was going to be my question. Is like, did you find it distracting? And I guess the answer to that is yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it. I don't know why the hell it took me 20 minutes to realize Ice Cube was Superfly, but I know that voice. I think I've heard it for 20 years on a TV show, a cop show, and then for a brief moment I was like, that's not Ice Cube. Was it Ice Cube? And then I'm like, yeah, it's Ice Cube. But
Yeah,
it was,
so many of these voice roles, they could have saved money in the budget, which like I'm sure a lot of these guys are friends of Seth Rogen, so they did it for cheaper than they would have other projects. But it really felt just like we need to add a little bit of gravitas to this movie. Let's do the Paw Patrol thing and show how many celebrities are involved in this movie, despite how big their roles may or may not be.
yeah. But I mean, these
Yeah,
are
it could be a
nitpicks.
studio thing, right? Like the studio they want to have that typical thing they have in an animated trailer where they have the screen that just goes dot 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 all the names that are in the movies, so you can have
Yeah,
like, because typically the animated movies have this exceedingly long list of big name
Yeah,
celebrities that are in it.
it adds legitimacy to the movie, so parents can be like, oh, Maya Rudolph is involved with this. Oh, Paul Rudd. Oh, Giancarlo Esposito. I liked him in Breaking Bad. Therefore, he must be great in this movie about 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hmm.
hmm So quick question: Did did anyone else, when it got to the super
No.
mutant fly? Okay, all right. All right,
Please
gonna mark
continue,
off.
Alex.
Gonna mark off my question. No. So the I did like the gag that they defeated the bad guy by shoving the beast into the water, and then they're like, "Ah, it's fine. What's the worst that could happen?" Where the hell did all the horses come from?
The zoo.
They were in the water.
No, he falls into a zoo.
Yeah, he comes out as the humpback whale,
Oh,
and then he like rolls himself into the zoo. That's
okay,
still way too many
okay.
horses for a zoo, though.
Yeah, as far
Okay.
as I know, most people have seen a horse before, so they're probably not in the zoo. But I don't know.
I mean, it's New York. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Well, my
Could be.
friend,
I mean,
Yeah.
it could have been a police horse. They have their mounted
Sure.
division.
That's right. The zoo is right next to the Mounted Division Zoo. That's where they got all the horses. No,
I
speaking
did
of,
like the gag where they shoot the anti-mutant gun at the kaiju superfly, and just like one little horse pops out, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is gonna take forever."
that was good because I finally saw what that thing actually did, and I was like, I was wondering because they missed every shot. Speaking of which, did anyone else notice that Splinter straight up murdered a guy?
Nope.
When he went to go save them during the milking scene, he like pops like the baton out of somebody, out of somebody's hand, knocks him to the
Oh,
floor,
yeah, and
and
he,
then
like, smashes
jabs
it
him
right in his
right in the
forehead.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember thinking, like, did that just like puncture like the crown of it, or did he just like go straight through and stab him through the face?
Yeah,
'Cause
there's
didn't
a
show
ton
me-
of violence in this movie. Like
that
I
is
was,
pretty
I took my
ambiguous.
4-year-old daughter to it, and I was like, that first scene was so dark and
Oh yeah.
and heavy. I was like, oh, this might have been a mistake, but she was fine, as far as I know.
No screaming in the middle of the night.
No, not yet.
Just remember, my dad took 4-year-old Josh to go see the 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I still remember looking up at my dad when Raphael yells "damn" after Casey Jones gets away, and I'm like, am I supposed to see this movie?
Boy.
Oh, mom says those kind of swears are bad, and you're taking me to see this kind of movie? My goodness, what are we in for? And then he takes me to go see RoboCop 2 and all sorts of other great stuff. Like,
Terminator
that was just the
2,
gateway movie.
This
The
is just to
original
wet your
Batman.
beak for violence.
Yeah, Batman 89 and Ninja Turtles 1990, those are like the first two movies I remember properly seeing in a theater, and I've got some great memories for that. But that one where Raphael yells "damn," and I just look over at my dad like, are we gonna go, or are we seeing this through?
Was there any movie that like legit gave you nightmares that you saw when you were that young?
Tales from the Crypt, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I never saw that in theaters. My aunt we're on a tangent here, but whatever. This is a good little. My aunt is a big horror movie fan. We watched like Ghoulies, Child's Play, all those sort of things, and like I would watch it like out of the corner of my eye because I did not like scary movies, as Alex will attest. I still don't like scary movies, but there was something about them watching Tales from the Crypt and the Crypt Keeper specifically. The first nightmare I vividly remember having. I don't know why a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old is dreaming like this, but I had a dream that I was in like a limousine going somewhere, and all of a sudden I just got attacked by a whole bunch of werewolves and other things, and out of the moonroof pops the Crypt Keeper cackling at me, and I woke up and I was like, I'm not going back to bed.
Just in a big sweat. Was
Yeah.
Ghoulies the movie with the weird green creature coming out of the toilet?
Yep.
I think so, yeah.
That freaked me out. I was afraid of the toilet because of that movie, because I would see that post or that VHS cover in the movie rental shop, and it would scare the crap out of me.
Another one she played pretty frequently for a while in the early 90s that really freaked me out was My Favorite Monster. Like, I was fine with the stuffed animal, the like purple, red, yellow, green, whatever he was. I was fine with the stuffed animal, but then I saw that there was a movie attached to it, and the way he just moved, it freaked me the hell out. And I was like, no, thank you.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh yeah.
That movie, I remember it being on USA, whatever. One of my cousins had me watch it. I was like 4 or 5, and I've been terrified of clowns ever since. And there's a Are You Afraid of the Dark that had clowns in a like a clown that haunted a funhouse mirror ride, and those two things just back to back just.
Ugh.
So I have a memory. Thankfully I asked my sister about it recently because both my sisters are getting married this year. One already had her wedding, the other one's coming up, and as we were at a park. I was like 16 or 17 because we drove them to a park, and they saw a clown giving away balloons. And they're like, "Oh, we want a free balloon, we want a balloon, blah blah." And I'm like, "Okay." I crossed a 4-lane street to the other side, and I said, "I'm going to walk on that side. You can walk on this side to the clown. I'll meet you at the end of the block." So my like 8 or 9 year old sisters were just walking. I'm like, Count Clown could kidnap them. Anyone could just take them. I am in no position to help at all. I'm like, I am not getting anywhere near that goddamn clown. Then at work a while back ago, they had a party thing, and I went to go join it because everyone's invited to go to these party things. And I turned the corner, and there was a clown there. And now, mind you, this clown is the teenage daughter, like 13-year-old daughter of one of the vice presidents. And I did not know that, and I almost threw a fist. And I turned around and walked back to my desk, and like everyone's coming out with like cake and stuff. I'm like, hey, Alex, are you gonna get cake? And stuff? I'm like, no, there's a clown. There's a fucking clown. I almost clocked it. And they're like, but that's blah blah blah's daughter. I'm like, I don't care. It's a clown. It's going to kill me.
How about you, Greg? Any childhood traumas?
The best one I can think of is Predator. I remember being like older than what is reasonable, scared in my bed, thinking about the Predator coming to get me, and in Canada when it was like it's like minus 30 or whatever. I'm like, oh, it's better when it's cold because he's got heat-seeking vision, and that means he can't see, which is the opposite of that. He'd see me better, but yeah, that's what that was comforting to me. It's like it's winter. The Predator can't see in winter.
he's cold-blooded. He'll move slower.
So that's why you all do the ice baths in winter. Dig the ice hole in the middle of the lake and get rid of the Predator.
That's right.
All right.
Where do you think Arnold got the idea from?
So let's round out the conversation on the turtles here real quick as we approach the hour mark. One thing that I thought was really interesting and unique about this story is that it's about the turtles wanting to be able to be accepted and out in the open publicly. And at the end of the movie, it actually happens. Like I thought it was going to be like a personal sacrifice kind of thing where we just basically go back to a status quo, except we have some minor nuances here and there. Like they have like a mutant family that they can lean on a little bit with the other mutants, Bebop, Rocksteady, Mondo Gecko, and everything. But instead, they help save the day, a la Spider-Man 2002, and the city of New York accepts them, and they get to go to high school. And how do you guys feel about the turtles being a public entity and the world just kind of accepting them as heroes and just teenagers and kids?
Well, I'm certainly interested to see how that plays out in this upcoming television series. 'Cause focusing on the teenage aspect so heavily of this movie was certainly like a direction that the Ninja Turtles hadn't really been taken in my opinion. And like to take that even further and exploring them in the public eye and having them go to high school like anybody else, that's certainly not an environment that I've seen the Ninja Turtles in before. So I'm definitely down for that. I also think it's cool that the movie ends with the Ninja Turtles taking off their bandanas, which is like essentially taking off their superhero uniform, which is not something typically you would see in a superhero movie. Usually like the last moment is like a hero moment, when they're on a skyscraper or whatever and fully decked out. They have finally become the superhero they were meant to be. And this is the opposite. They've finally become the children they were meant to be.
Well, damn, that's deep. I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's hard to follow up right there.
Wait. I have a very eloquent thought. Good ending. I like.
Yeah, so I've been trying to rack my brain about how a series around a public Ninja Turtles group would work, and the way Greg you just explained it, I'm like, okay, they just do Kim Possible but with the Ninja Turtles. They're doing normal high school stuff, they're hanging out with April, and then they get called to duty and they're going to go do the thing. The only difference is they're public heroes now. So in this world, they probably don't care about collateral damage. They're not going to hold the turtles responsible for whatever happens. Or maybe there'll be an episode about that, or maybe that's what the sequel will be about, where public opinion starts to turn on them. But I mean, there are definitely some very easy parallels they can create with modern society. So there's a lot of intrigue to be had there, but I'm not sure how deep they would actually go, just because this, as we said, this is a really breezy 99-minute movie, and I don't they don't take the time to breathe and give real good impressions on what the allegorical concept or allegorical ideals of the movie is.
Yeah, I do like it that it's not doing the fake thing of like, oh, they were in a hat. They just kind of look a little funny. No, everyone knows they're giant freaking turtles, and that apparently there's another band of mutants that also are helping them out. So that they are being integrated into high school, and it's going to be fun. The only thing that briefly gives me pause is, are they actually going to let Leonardo and April get together?
Well, they did discuss that. They at the end, April's like, "Yeah, we're just friends, right? We're here at the dance as just friends." So like, April clearly
Yeah,
has no
sure.
real interest there, and Leonardo's gonna, like, maybe was it Angel was the other turtle, the female turtle that they introduced much later on.
Venus de Milo.
Venus, yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
I
in the live action series, correct?
I think
Yes, it was a
so.
live
Yeah,
action series, and then she was referenced a few times in the comics, but then they like killed her off or they ignored her, and now there's a different female turtle, but she's actually a human that got turned into a turtle. And I think they broke the curse, and she's back to being a human.
oh, it was a curse. It wasn't the ooze.
I don't
Sorry,
remember.
this is all in the comics you're talking about.
I
Yeah.
couldn't say I haven't followed the turtles other than if you do want a good turtles fix, I will say the two Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Power Rangers crossovers from Boom Studios, but written by Ryan Parrott, are phenomenal. More phenomenal, I could say. Is I love those are two of my favorite Saturday morning things ever, and Ryan Parrott created two amazing stories out of those. Minor spoilers at the end of issue 1 in the very first crossover event, the Shredder gets the Green Ranger morpher, and the Green Ranger Shredder is badass. That is a design that is like needs to be translated into live action just to see how amazing it looks. So let's do. I know we said the last thing was the school thing, but we do have to talk the mid credit scene as well, because I'm a big dummy and didn't realize, Greg, I hope I'm not putting you down because I'm calling myself a dummy here, but I didn't realize that Cynthia Utrom was actually supposed to be a stand-in for Krang.
That's
What?
kind of what I thought because of the
Oh.
like I was like the visor thing and she was kind of color coded like that big lumbering thing that he used to walk around in, the
His
automaton
big
that
mech
he had.
suit, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually right at the beginning I was like, is she gonna get mutated into Krang by the end?
Yeah, so I didn't catch on to it. I was talking with Justin Henson of the Movie Wire, and he explained it that like the color coding is there. Uh, the uh, the TCRI name has been changed, I guess. They pretty much spell out it's going to be the Technodrome that she's working towards, because Techno is part of the TCRI acronym. But yeah, I guess she's either the new Krang mech suit, or she's somehow being remote controlled by Krang. But they are doing a gender swap on Krang in this case, and that as soon as Justin said it, I'm like, that makes a lot more sense as to why she's calling in the Shredder in the mid credit scene. Because up till that point, I was like, why are they calling in Shredder other than fan service?
Hmm. Do we know the gender of Krang? Is he
He's a Krang.
was it a was he a he? I guess. He's a little blobby brain boy.
I
Or
mean,
I guess I just said boy again. That doesn't work.
Okay.
Krang has been inside of many things, so I mean, Krang can be whatever gender Krang wants to possess.
Hmm.
Yeah, according to his Wikipedia page, Krang is a male of the Utrom species. So Cynthia
Ah,
Utrom.
I didn't realize that 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 was the name of the Krang species.
Yeah, I
I guess
couldn't have
I'm
told you
not
that
down
either.
with the deep turtle lore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did not pick that one up at all.
yeah. She had just this generic Russian or vaguely Eastern European accent, and I was just like, all right, this lady's just a Nick Fury type. Like, okay, let's move on. I'm not interested here. So I did not pay attention to anything going on with her. And then when Justin said that, I was like, shit, I should have paid attention.
I swear a couple times she did like the Krang warble with her voice. I like I was just
I can
thinking
hear
like
that.
it could have been, maybe I was just hearing things because I had already suspected that that's where they were going, but I swear that she was doing like a little bit of a whatever that Krang does.
I could totally hear that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and maybe I wrote that off to like a sound design choice, like, oh, they're doing a Spider-Verse thing. So like I said, the minute she started having that vague Eastern European accent talking, and I was just like, all right, let's move on with this. This is not interesting. This is not the Turtles.
Yeah.
So before we go, we have to give our ratings. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, best movie ever or pass? Greg, we will start with you.
That's the only choices?
Yep, there's no nuance on the internet, so it's best
All right,
movie ever.
I guess so. Best movie ever.
Alex.
Second best turtle movie ever. Must see.
And I'm gonna give it a must see, best movie ever. It's a lot of fun. I don't know that I don't know that we're the right demographic for it, other than the fact that we grew up with the Ninja Turtles, just because of all the references they make. But I do think they balance it out really well with some older references. But I do also feel like it dates the movie a little bit pretty heavily and pretty quickly. It's kind of like Shrek opening up with All Star.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be one of those movies in 20 years that's gonna be really weird that they have a bunch of 80s references and there's nothing from the 90s or aughts. It's all just 80s or current for 2022.
Yeah, I appreciate a movie taking a swing and making modern references, especially if it's a front door pilot, as we have so dubbed it. Because it is basically becoming a time capsule, but it's going to become this weird moment in time where everyone's going to be like, what the heck? Well, they're going to be like me now, but in the future, they're going to be like, what is BTIS IRL? They're like,
Yep.
All right, so it's a clean sweep for a must-see, best movie ever. So we are going to head out after that. Greg, thank you so much for being here. Greg Beaver from I Have Some Notes. Please let us know again about your podcast and where we can find it.
You can find I Have Some Notes at ihavesomenotes.com, and we are pretty much on like 80 million socials now because that's the way of the world. We're at I Have Some Notes on Blue Sky and Threads and Twitter and Facebook, and I Have Some Notes Pod on Instagram. Or actually, I guess we're I Have Some Notes Pod on Threads as well. But you'll be able to find us. And you can also check out, we post reviews and things like that on our Patreon pages, patreon.com. I Have Some Notes.
Yeah, you guys have a really good Thor Love and Thunder episode that I've heard some good things about.
yeah, for sure.
That
might
was
be
a
our best
fantastic
episode. You'll have to listen.
All I know is that was the best episode. I have listened to ones of the podcast, and that one was amazing.
Well, Greg, thank you again so much for being here. You can follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Post News, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, Lonnie's website that is going to be tanking sometime in the not too distant future. We are at Talking Smack Pod on all those. Please don't forget to join our Discord as well as the I Have Some Notes Discord. You can email us your thoughts, reviews, comments, concerns at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes and Beppo for our original avatars. Alex, who is remixing our musical themes this week?
You know what? No one. Leo Allen is just so good. We just need to savor this one. But
All right.
I pulled some strings, Adina Menzel.
All right. Please like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast. And most importantly, thank you so much for listening. Take care, everyone.
Watch Star Trek, especially TNG.
Hell yeah. There's my boy.
Tune in a couple weeks when we review Strange New World Season 2.
Oh yeah.
well, we prefer the term ooze, but yeah.
It's like more like, it's just nicer.
It rolls off the tongue better, yeah.
Ooze. It's nice, right? It's ooze.